Tip ups and just what's happening on the Winnebago system. How's it going, Frank? Hey, John. Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope everybody had a good Christmas. Who got out fishing? It's nice tonight. We got both streams working like they should, and should be a lot better show. Should be able to interact with everybody a little bit easier tonight. Mr. Ray, your trailer is coming along, bud. How's it going, Andrew? Richard, how's it going, guys? Good to see everybody joining tonight. We're going to talk a little tip-up fishing. If anybody has got questions, you obviously bring questions. I think we might have some high school kids joining us tonight, too. They got the high school fishing teams that are starting up their contest here. And yeah, should be a good show. Please ask questions, and we'll talk about what's happening around the Winnebago system. Just got back home, actually, was out there tonight, just kind of scouting around and checking ice conditions and putting a couple fish on the ice and putting them back. So nothing to clean tonight. That's good. Where is part-time Jared Gilbertson? Yeah, Mr. Part-Timer. Mr. Sick Part-Timer. Everybody's sick. Bud has got the flu. Jared's been hacking up a lung. All my fishing buddies are down for the count. Hey, Mike, thanks. This is the Boathouse, actually. It's kind of our project that's never ending. It's a mess right now because Christmas kind of destroyed everything, but kids' toys and everything are all still around. We got, I don't know, see the bar lights here. Yeah, we'll do a grand tour one of these days. You got to come over, Mike, and come up and come fishing. All right, so I guess let's talk tip-up fishing. For guiding, we do put out tip-ups. It's such a pain in the ass sometimes, especially when it's windy, it's blowing. So when the fish are moving like crazy, obviously you want to try and stay mobile. So fishing tip-ups can be troublesome for a lot of guys. I've been friends with the Manlicks for quite a few years, and been using the Bite Me box tip-ups, and those things there are amazing in any conditions. You don't have to worry about wind or snow, or sometimes the blowing snow, if you don't go check your boxes, you'll get snow packed up along the side of the flag, and it doesn't allow it to trip. But the way the system works inside with the spool and the charcoal, keeping it warm and heated, that's a big key for tip-up fishing, is keeping everything working and keeping everything sensitive. That's key. And I know there's been so many different mouse traps out there for guys, the Finicky Fish Factories, the Finicky Foolers, There's, there was a guy up in New London, I think, that made some box tip ups. There's another guy in Minnesota that made some luxury electronic, box tip up, and everybody's kind of done it. But really, we continue to use the bite me's, and they catch fish. I mean, there's no question about it. But one of the reasons, and one of the other things that we do probably a little bit different, and we'll start right off the bat, is talking about line. I don't know, I mean, raise your hands, give me a like, whatever, but how many people use braided Dacron when fishing, for their main line for tip-up fishing, and then to a leader? The old 30, 50, whatever pound test Dacron. And, I used to use it. And once I started playing around and, exploring and figuring out why I was losing fish, stuff made more sense to me. And the problem with Dacron is that stuff stretches like a bungee cord. So let's say you hook up on a fish, and that fish takes out a whole bunch of line, and you go and set the hook. Well, you're not getting a good hook set, because once you go set the hook, you're stretching a ton of line, and you're not going to get the penetration. So what I've been running is this is a Cigar. It's just a straight braid, and this is their Tactics. It's a real inexpensive braided line, and I run 80-pound test, then usually to a barrel swivel, and then depending on whatever species I'm going after, whether it be perch or walleye or crappie or pike, then we'll go to whatever size leader. For perch and crappie, I'm running like a 3 or 4 pound leader. And then when we go up to the walleyes, I'm running a 6 pound. And then once we get into the pike, I typically run a 30 pound. But what the nice thing is with this braid is you get a fish, you can't stretch this stuff. So when you set the hook, you're getting a positive hook set right away. And not only that, but when these fish take off and run, a lot of times those fish will take off and run, and that cord absorbs so much energy, or that Dacron absorbs so much energy, that a lot of times you'll lose that fish, because again, it's like a bungee cord. This way here, I know how much tension I can keep in my fingers. I keep that line in my fingers and let that fish fight, and use my fingers as a drag. And that way there, I can control how much stretch or how loose that line gets by controlling with my fingers. So line is really important. Like I say, an 80-pound is plenty. You're not going to break off. The nice thing with the braid too is it's really abrasion resistant. It won't dry rot like that Dacron does. So it just something to take in account when you're spooling up your tip ups. Now when we go to once we got our line, we go to our barrel swivel, and then I'll run a leader, and usually a fluorocarbon leader. Like I say, like a 3 or 4 pound for crappies. And then we're using something that a lot of people don't think would really work for big fish. It doesn't matter what you're fishing for. Joel, that is Cigar's Tactics. It's a camouflage braided line. So that's the other thing too, is it kind of hides in the water. It's camouflage. And I actually spool all my musky rod reels up with this stuff in the summertime too. Great line, doesn't break apart, casts real good, but for tip up fishing, this stuff is awesome. And actually it does come when you do buy the Tactics too. It's kind of like a system. It does come with a 25-inch fluorocarbon leader. This one here has a 25-pound leader. So if you are going to fish some pike, or maybe some bigger trout or whatnot, it's already got your fluorocarbon leader right in the package. So going back to the hooks, everybody thinks you got to use a big hook, and that's completely way off the spectrum. We use the smallest hooks we can find. When we're perch fishing, walleye fishing, crappies, I'm using a number 20 treble hook. And, whether it be a gold or a bronze, it really doesn't make a difference. They're so small that you can hook a minnow, behind the head, on the tail, wherever you want to. And that minnow is not going to have any resistance to swim around. And when those fish come in and flare their gills to open up, and suck that minnow in, that bait is gone. It doesn't get caught in the front of the mouth. It is in the back of the throat, in the gullet. And yeah, anybody that's used these knows that they get hooked in your finger. And Jared commented it gets hooked in your fingers. But the nice thing about these hooks is once those fish suck in that bait, that minnow is in the back of their throat, and every fish has got that fatty tissue back in their gullet back there, and that hook will get stuck back there. And then you just have to make sure you've got a good line that you're not going to have to worry about getting frayed on the teeth, and control the fish. Let those fish run. So many times we get clients out on the ice that have never caught a fish on a tip-up before, and you'd think they'd be bringing in blue marlin or something. They go up and they grab and they jerk as hard as they can, and they're just cranking. You got to be finessing these fish, guys. Set that hook. It's not even so much a hook set. It's more just kind of a little bit of a pop. Make sure that you got tension there. And then, like I say, use your fingers and let that fish feel out that line, tire them out, wear them out. It's not a race. We don't have to worry about bringing these fish up, super fast. Let these fish kind of swim around and tire them out. Once you get them to the bottom of the hole, a lot of times that first time they're going to, take off and give you another run. Let them go, just keep that line just lightly pinched in your fingers, and take your time. Just take your time. That's the easiest thing I can tell you guys, is take your time. And then once it gets up to the hole, typically by then, if you've wore them out, they come up pretty easy. But when you get a fish that's, super pissed, and you bring them up to a hole and you try and get them up a hole, they're swimming backwards and they're gone. And that's when you lose them. So number 20 treble hooks, depending on whatever size leader, and we'll go all the way up to, an 8-pound typically on a number 20. And then after that, we'll typically go to like a 14 or a 16 when I'm fishing pike. Again, super small hooks. Those big pike come in, they eat that minnow, they suck it all the way in, and that hook is buried in the back of their throat. And the crazy thing is because of how small these hooks are, when it comes time to taking them out, everybody, my hook's swallowed. You got a pliers, you got a hemostats. Guys, just pull it, because it's so thin, it'll just pull through that fatty tissue in the back of their throat and not do any damage. And then, Ray's to bring up a good question, and we're going to talk about the fine details of tip-up fishing here in a second. So smallest hooks you can get away with for, any size fish. You don't have to go big. Even if we're fishing really big dead smelt, if I'm running a quick set rig, I'm going to have 2 small hooks on the head and on the tail, and let those fish suck in that bait and get those hooks buried in the back of their throat. That's the easiest way to guarantee you're going to improve your hook up percentage. Shane, the hooks are it's a Mustad number 20. Let me see if I can't. I don't know if I can share screens here. I don't know if I can or not. But if you type in Mustad number 20 treble hooks, they'll come up. I know like Fish USA, Amazon, Tackle Warehouse, some of those places have them. It's pretty much used for trout fishing, so you're not going to find them in any stores. I'm going to tell you that right now. There's no store I've ever found anywhere that carries them other than stuff that's online. Todd, what about hooking minnows each way on the treble hook? It has worked for me in the past. So here's the thing. I don't know how much you guys have watched fish underwater when they eat, but a perch 99% of the time is going to come in and circle that bait, that minnow, and they're going to eat it head first. Crappies, a lot of times, will do the same thing. Most every fish will come in and eat that minnow head first, because that's the way it's going to, go down. If you take a game fish and, you eat a bluegill backwards, or a perch, or, any style bait backwards, their dorsal fins are going to poke coming down. So these fish are smart enough to know that, yep, I need to eat it head first so it slides down, and that reverse barb effect from a dorsal fin doesn't poke me as I, try to eat this thing. So, and then hooking them, I always try and hook my hooks as close to the head as possible and really, really lightly. You got to be very careful because you will spine your minnows and then you're going to kill them. I can stress that over and over and over with guys, but they still go right through the center of the back and put a hook in the spine, and that minnow's dead. 3 seconds it gets in the water. I'm talking just pierce the top of the skin and let that minnow swim around nice and fast and natural, and you're not going to have any problems, and they'll stay alive. It doesn't matter if it's a shiner, a fathead. If you hook too far into their spine or into their back, you're going to spine them and you're going to kill them. And I always like to try and, when I hook them, is make sure that hook goes down and up, so the barb or the tip of the hook is facing forward and not so much sideways. Just because when that perch comes in or a walleye comes in and they hit that head, if they're only kind of sucking on the top of the head, there's a good chance that they're going to get that thing caught. But most of the time, guys, when these fish come in with that light line, small hook, they come in, they open up their mouth, the minnow goes in, and it's gone. And then you pull the line out. You don't need to get a pliers or anything like that. Let's see, questions. I do check Jared's minnows every once in a while. The biggest thing, guys, is if the minnows are dead, they're not going to catch fish. So I'm constantly walking around and checking everybody's minnows. It's just one of those things where all it takes is that minnow just to get spined a little bit too much, and that thing's dead. I can't stress that enough. So now we got our minnows, our treble hooks. We've got our leader. We got our swivel. We've got our braid. Now let's talk split shots. And this is where we start talking about details and what can make or break a day. So when fish are active, what we'll do is we'll take our split shot and we'll move it up, 14, 16 inches from the treble hook. And we might only put one on there, but most of the time we got, 2 small split shot, just enough to get it down. And what happens then is that minnow will be down here and your split shot's up here, and that minnow can swim and then fall back down, and swim up, and then it'll fall back down. So you're covering more water. That minnow's covering more water and doing more of a job for you. If you slide your split shot down and get it closer to the hook, now that minnow can only do this. It can't really run, and it's more for those fish that are inactive, that don't want to chase and are just going to come up and try and suck something in. Pay attention, because you're going to have a tip up that's going to go off time and time again. That's going to be your hot bait. That's going to be your hot tip up. Figure out why that one's working. Most of the time, especially on the Winnebago system, it's not location. It is how that bait is set up. And let's say you've got, and we always stagger them. We'll put some a couple inches off the bottom. We'll put some middle of the water column. We'll put some, a foot up off the bottom, and, and then just kind of keep it track. Fishing with, Rick and Terry, and, some other guys, little things that we do is when we have snow on the ground, we'll write a number like 12 or 20, that's how many inches up off the bottom we are when we go and set each tip up. That way there, if one's constantly going off, we can go to that one and say, oh yeah, the guys, this one's 20 inches up off the bottom. We'll go circle around, hit them all, and raise them up off the bottom. Or, if one's going off and they're all, kind of in the same zone, one might have split shot 6 inches from the hook. Another might have split shot 15 inches from the hook. Make sure they're all the same. Pay attention to those small details, and, those fish you're going to get more bites. I mean, just all those small little details really helps. Ty asks, why 80-pound test line with such light leader? So Ty, the reason for that is with that braid, I never know. Let's say we're going to go up north and fish pike. It's real easy to cut my leader off the bottom and put a 30-pound leader on and have, something already rigged for pike. The other thing is when it's cold and the last thing I want to deal with is super thin tip up line as I'm pulling that stuff out. I want something with a little bit of mass, something that's not going to get tangled up, and something that's going to, lay a lot nicer and kind of fall more to the ground and coil up. That's the other thing, guys, is, pay attention to your wind. When you got a tip up and you're hand lining these fish, if the wind's coming, from your side, don't hand over hand your line and push the line into the wind. Hand it and throw it, almost like let that line, the wind take that line off, and just keep going off to the side. That way there, a lot of times that wind will be a nice, it'll lay nicer on the ice. That way there, when you have to wind up your tip ups again, you don't have a big ball of mess. That heavy braid really makes a big difference, and there's some guys, and I think even on a couple of my tip ups, I think I got 120-pound braid, just for that simple fact is it's heavier and it'll sink nicer, and it really comes off the spool easier, and just it works better. So let's see. Jason Herman asked, tip ups on Bago or just poigan? Oh, both. We fish, once we find the school, unfortunately on poigan, we have to take an action that I don't like doing, and we set perimeters. We get out super early. The problem is, with this system, and pretty much anywhere you go where there's a lot of people, as people crowd in on you. So I use my tip ups a lot of times as a perimeter. I'll go out to an area, drill my holes, set our boxes, and if I know that I've got a school of fish piled into the center of my area, I'll use those tip ups as not only a blocking device, because we'll get those fish as they start swimming out of that circle, but if we keep an area quiet and we've got a perimeter of tip ups around, that way there I don't have to worry about the people moving in. Now, it doesn't stop people, but for the most part, if they see a big circle of tip ups, yeah, right. I wish. If they see a big circle of tip ups, they're less likely to come in. And really, guys, we fish poigan a lot more than Bago here the last couple of years, just because ice conditions. But in that shallow water, the more you move around, the more noise you make, the more you're spooking those fish. So that's why we set that perimeter and have our holes drilled in the middle, and we have our guys in the shacks. And those fish will just sit there and make circles. And so there's some days we don't ever have to drill another hole, as long as we can keep the noise out from outside of us. So let's get back to our line. So we've got our braid, got our swivel, we've got our split shot. Now, one of the reasons too why we use braid is because when a fish comes in, especially when they're finicky, that minnow, let's say they're just sucking on it, right? And they're just not eating. And they come in and they bite that minnow and they feel resistance from up above. They spit it out and they go away. With a braid, that's going to sink. And then a lot of people use like bobbers or, line markers up on the top where your spool is, so you know where to go. We always put split shot on that. And a couple reasons is, one, they're easy to take on and off. But with that split shot, when that minnow gets just bumped, rather than having a bobber keep your line afloat, if it bumps and it triggers enough to feed that line off your spool, that split shot will sink and it'll feed line to that fish. And now they don't feel any resistance. You're actually giving them line, and they could be sitting there holding on to that bait. And it just takes that few more seconds, like, okay, yep, I think this is good enough. And then they take that final bite to eat it, and then they run. So, as a button, a lot of people use buttons, yep, or bobber stops. I've seen all kinds of different stuff. But that split shot, or a weight, a clip-on weight of some sort up on the top, will feed line down into that hole, to make sure that fish does not feel any resistance. You'd be surprised. I've set video cameras, or your underwater cameras up on these tip ups, and just let them run and try and record these things. And these minnows, they come in, or the walleyes will come in, and they'll come in and they'll just real gently hold on to the head of that minnow, and they don't do nothing with it. And they'll sit there for sometimes 30 seconds or more before they either decide, no, I don't want it, or they'll take that second bite and swim off from it. So it's just little things, the little details that make the difference to help catch more fish. That's really what it's all about. Stuff that a lot of people just kind of take for granted, and things that we've kind of figured out from over the years. Brett, the size treble hook we use is a number 20 for pretty much anything other than pike. And then when I get into pike, we're using a 14 or a 16. Let's see. Oh, okay. Yep. So as far as size of split shot, it really depends on the day. But most of the time, I think it's all the stuff I have is just the BB size. So pretty much small stuff. I want my minnows to swim around. If we're using really big, like 4 or 5 inch shiners, I might jump up a couple sizes in split shot. But the one thing with shiners. And if you get your split shot too high, what happens is shiners are notorious for doing this. The shiner will swim up and they'll get wrapped around that split shot. And pretty soon, you go up, and always make sure you're checking your tip ups, do your laps, bring minnows, check your minnows. But a lot of times when you're fishing shiners, you'll bring up your line to check it, and there'll be a big ball of mess down at the bottom, is because those shiners are constantly swimming around in circles and getting wrapped up. Really, there's no way to necessarily prevent that, short of just making sure that you have everything spaced out. There is a thing of having too much line out for those bigger shiners. So that kind of goes in. Let's see, certain size swivel. Todd, I use I think it's a number 0 Spro swivel. We talked about it in one of the past episodes when we used for the line. Super small, just to reduce any visibility or anything that's not natural. All right, so now we're going to talk about bait. Whether we using shiners or fatheads, rosy reds, golden shiners. Most of the time out on Poygan or Winnebago, because their natural food out there is a lake shiner, the emerald shiners and Milwaukee shiners, whatever you want to call them. That's what we try and use most of the time. Now the shiners are going to be more aggressive. They like to swim around a little bit more. They'll do more of that up and down stuff. And some days, the fatheads, which are going to be more stubborn, they're going to typically go down to the bottom, and they just kind of sit there and move back and forth. They swim faster, but they don't really swim far. So a lot of times we'll use fatheads, and then on the days where if we're really into some cloudy water, or we have to figure out ways to get these fish attracted a little bit more from a distance, we'll use a lot of the rosy reds. Now, whether it be fatheads or shiners, there's days, like we were talking, that those fish want to chase their bait. And it's as simple then as just hooking the minnow behind the head and letting them swim. But then there's the days that, we notice that, we've got our split shot only a couple inches up off the hook, and, the minnows are, not moving very far, but we're still getting short bites. That's when we'll take the teeth and, we take the minnows, and I'll bite the tails off. And that way those minnows all they can do at that point is just kind of just shimmy it down at the bottom, but they can't swim away. They can't really jump up, but they're still moving their tails as fast as they can. And it's a great attractant for those fish that are negative. And that again is a small detail that, we just try and pay attention to, and try and figure out what's working, for that particular day. So cutting the fins off or the back tails off, some days makes all the difference in the world. And really, you just gotta go out there and fish and figure it out, what's happening and what's going on. As far as chubs or anything like that, I've never tried them. We can't get them around here by us in Wisconsin. My bait guy, I've got emerald shiners, Milwaukee shiners, or fatheads. Brian, I meant to say clip tails. Sorry, not the fins. That covers the bait. Now, when it comes time to pike, pike are a little different breed. Believe it or not, my favorite, and probably cheapest way to catch pike is with hot dogs. That's been debated and talked about for so many years, but it's such a great bait. Go to Aldi's and buy the nastiest, greasiest, oily, hot dogs you can find, and put it on a number 14 treble hook. Drop it down and let her go. I mean, it's really that easy. If you're looking for big pike, then we get out the schmelt or frozen herring, and again, running a 2-hook system. My herring rigs. I don't want to sound dumb, but you just cut the tail fin off. Donald, yeah, no, you're not dumb. Just, literally all you're doing is cutting the tail. A lot of times I just bite the tail off. Or if you got good nails, you can pull the tail off just so there's no fin for them to swim around. All you want is that short little stubby on the back, and it'll just sit there and quiver, and they can't go anywhere. And that'll just bring those fish in. Whole or half hot dogs, full hot dogs. I'm using a full hot dog. What I do is I take my treble hook. So if you got your treble, your three-prong treble hook, and the shank, I'll push up through the hot dog, and then I always run on my pike tip ups. I always run a snap for the simple reasons all my baits are pre-rigged. I take my trebles, shove them up through the bodies of whether it be a herring or a hot dog. I use a lot more dead bait than I do anything else for pike. And then that way there, once we catch a fish, I can unclip the treble hook, put a new one on with the bait already pre-rigged, and send her back down. That way there, you can go to the freezer section of any grocery store, buy a box of herring or schmelt or anything, and pre-rig, throw a bunch of treble hooks in those things, keep them frozen, and that way there, once you get out, all you got to do is typically take a knife and puncture the stomach so you can pop the air bladder, and then they'll sink down, and you can fish them frozen if you're going to use a herring or schmelt or anything like that. And same with the hot dogs. Poke the hook through the hot dog, conceals the hook. And again, like we were talking, those small hooks, when they get sucked in, they're not going to be felt or anything. They get all the way down into their gullet, in the back of their throat. And once you feel resistance on that line, and just give it a little bit of a pop. Don't set the hook like you're musky fishing. Just a little bit of a pop. All you want to do is make sure that those hooks penetrate the back of their throat, and you're good to go. Let's see, what else am I missing? I think we've pretty much covered everything. We do quite a bit of like I say, quite a bit of tip up fishing out on the lakes, Poygan, Butamore, going after for the pike and walleyes, but more so probably the perch and the crappies is where I enjoy the tip up fishing. Everybody uses tip downs, and there's a reason guys use tip downs, is because they don't have that resistance, right? Most guys don't have a tip up that's out there that has zero resistance like a tip down does, and that's where those box tip ups do really well. If I'm pike fishing, though, one of my favorite tip ups for pike fishing is there's a company called Firehouse Tip Ups, and they make a tip up called the Claw. And the reason I like these is, what's the problem with tip ups is they don't store very easy. They make a mess. Stuff always is tangled up. There's really no good storage solution for them. What these guys have done is it folds up like a clamshell, and basically is a round tube, almost a little bit bigger than a Pringle can, but everything is contained inside. And yet, once you open them back up, They work super good. They're just as sensitive as any beaver dam I've ever used. The nice thing about pike tip-ups or tip-up fishing is you don't need that sensitivity like we do for walleyes or perch or crappies. Those pike come in, they stare at a bait, and it's like, okay, yep, I'm going to eat it, and bam, it's over. So it's not anything like you need super sensitive tip-ups for pike fishing. Let's see, we got a couple of things. Setting depth, sunny days, cloudy days, time of day. All right, yeah, we can get into that. And then set weight heavier on flag for pike to avoid trips on the bite me. Yep. So the other thing you can do, Shane, on those bite me's is put the clicker on too. There's a clicker on the fly reel on those bite me's that puts resistance on there. And if you're using dead bait, not a problem. I keep it sensitive because what's going to hit, dead bait's not going to swim away. If it is, we got issues. You can set it as light as you want. But if you're fishing big shiners, bigger baits, either set it heavier or put that clicker on so that spool doesn't spin on you. Let's see, setting depth, sunny days, cloudy days, time of day. So John, really, we talked about this in a jigging episode, is where do the fish that feed hang out? Everybody thinks that, fish that feed are on the bottom, or, guys will fish on that bottom and keep their baits 2-3 inches up off the bottom. And that's where they keep everything. For perch, absolutely. Those perch are bottom dwellers. They live on the bottom. When you find a school, they're going to be, as close to the bottom as possible. But when it comes time to the walleyes, a lot of times those walleyes are up in that middle of the water column. And, whether we're on Bago or Poigan or, any of these lakes on this system, we always have baits, super high, sometimes even right underneath the ice. Because on those sunny days, especially, it seems like those fish come up to, and they'll start looking for bugs or anything that might be hanging out at the bottom of the ice. And those walleyes will come and munch right underneath the ice all the time. So again, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just trial and error. Figure out where the fish are swimming. If you got electronics, watch where the fish are. But most typically, your feeding fish are going to be higher in the water column. If you set your baits up high, the fish that are down here can see it. The fish's eyes are up on top of their head. They swim around. They see something up above. They're going to swim up and eat it if they're hungry. They don't swim around looking at the bottom. Sturgeon do, but the walleyes and perch and that, they don't swim around looking at the bottom. They're always looking up. So if you keep your baits, especially if you got some cleaner water, keep your baits, within a reasonable distance of where the fish are hanging out. If they're going to eat, they're going to see it. They're going to come up and eat it. Now, if they're not going to eat, there's nothing you can do. I mean, those are the days where you have to get your big spoons out and get your jigging wraps or, some sort of, aggressive bait and trigger the bite by aggression and not by hunger. And, that's I guess the easiest way to explain where to put your baits is there's no magic number, but if anything, keep them up a little bit higher. Let's see, where else are we making? Oh, back to the hot dogs and pike. Quick Trip hot dogs for pike. I don't know if I've ever tried the Quick Trip hot dogs. I know Bar S, I think, is one brand. You want just the nasty, greasy, oily hot dog. So when that thing is down there, it's actually creating like an oil slick. I mean, when you put the thing in the water, you can see the oil ring as soon as it hits the water. And, those are the ones that work best. Either, cheap, easy, with how expensive baits getting these days. I mean, now I think it's like $1.50 a shiner, or $2 a shiner. It's getting crazy. Guys up in northern Wisconsin and, northern Minnesota, I know they use a lot of different minnows that are up there. Again, we're talking more down in the central part of Wisconsin here where, our primary bait is, lake shiners, Milwaukee shiners, emerald shiners, whatever you want to call them, fatheads, and, an occasional sucker. We'll use some suckers every once in a while, but those get pretty hard to find in the wintertime. Search for fish with live scope and find them before fishing. Move, then fish. John, 100%. That's what we were doing today. I go out and I try. I try some days to not catch fish. I try and locate and kind of see, before the ice formed on the lakes. I was out late in the season on the boat using side imaging, kind of seeing where these schools were, and just about every year we go back to the same spots, and these fish are, we think fish are dumb, but they're smart. Big fish go where the food is. And once you learn your systems, your lakes, and understand where the food goes throughout the season, you're going to find the game fish in those spots. That just like you or I or anybody, come noon, you drive to McDonald's and you're going to find people. When when it's feeding time, or where the minnows are hiding out, or know where the bait fish are, if you go there at some point in the day, you're going to have big fish come through and eat. Not all the time. I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, and Jared will contest. We've had days where we never caught a fish. I mean, we'll have days, it doesn't matter what you do. You could be marking, you can be seeing them on the camera. You can get them to follow, to race, to chase, and they just won't eat. There's just nothing you can do to make those fish bite, and that's why they call it, fishing, not catching. I'm not going to be the guy that's going to tell you we catch fish every day. Now, we get you on fish every day, but there are days that it's tough. I'd say in an average season, we'll have probably 2 or 3 days where we may not catch, a fish. We're going to catch 1 or 2, but it's not going to be, a good solid bite. It's going to be something where we get lucky and hook one here and there. But those days happen. It happens to everybody, and if it doesn't, I'm going to call you flat out. I'm going to call you a liar, because I spend just as much time. Yeah, dynamite or spears are the 2 things that we need to legalize in Wisconsin for those rough days, because there's just days I just want to pull my hair out. Do you put any spoons or bling on your leaders, or just a hook? So Ty, if I'm pike fishing, yes, absolutely. I like to put some little blades and anything to kind of dress something up with live bait. If I'm dead bait fishing, nope, I'm just straight dead bait, nothing, no attractant or anything like that. When we're fishing those walleyes or perch, crappies, again, I want stuff as natural as can be, and I don't use much for any attractants when I'm walleye fishing, or crappies or perch or anything like that. I've tried putting like colored beads or really small blades up above those small treble hooks, and really haven't noticed a difference. If anything, we do better with just natural than we do with any of the attractants. So again, that's just my perspective. What works for me, that doesn't mean it doesn't work for you guys. I'm always about trying new things and figuring out what works best for you guys. Let's see. Cameras. I think we're going to do a segment here maybe next week. We'll talk more on electronics and really get into the skinny of what to do for electronics. But I use a camera for scouting a lot. Just like today, the fish. We're using. I got my 360 out. I went and drilled a bunch of holes, and just checking to see where schools were. And, if you get on top of a school and it's right underneath you, it's super easy to throw one of these little Markham Pursuit cameras down the hole just to kind of see what's going on. But the thing with it is that walleyes and white bass hate cameras. The minute you drop one down, those fish are gone. You're not going to, see. But what's nice is if you are on a really big school of fish and you kind of want to see what they are, whether they're perch or shad or whatnot, you can drop your camera down, just kind of get a grasp on what's happening. Where cameras are really helpful is when we do pan fishing, because so many times the bluegills, crappies, perch, they don't mind cameras. They love it. The bluegills they're Hollywood actors, man. They come up to the camera and like, oh, look at me, in their eyes, and they're looking, and they're super excited. And I think they see the reflection in the lens, and it doesn't affect them at all. But what's neat about using the cameras, especially pan fishing, is you can put 2 and 2 together. Watch your flasher, watch your locator, watch your camera, and start figuring out. Now I don't even have to use a camera anymore because I've watched fish so many times that I can see what's happening on my flasher and tell you what that bluegill's doing just by knowing, time and time again how these fish react. So it's a great learning tool. It's a great scouting tool. You can definitely, if you're fishing structure, you can see, the different types of weeds or logs or, whatever may happen to be down there. But then there's times too, in years past where, we've been out on Winnebago and guys like, we're marking all kinds of fish, but we just can't get them to bite. Well, all right, drop camera down, see what's going down there. Oh, there's shad. Pick up, leave. You're not going to catch any of those shad. If you do, happy to you, and we'll catch you later. But again, it's a nice tool to have. Definitely recommend getting one of those small little Markham Pursuit cameras or a Recon 5. Very easy to carry around. The battery lasts a long time. They're great for using in the boat. If you kayak fish or anything like that. We even took ours down to when we went down to Hawaii. I was dropping it over the boats and in the harbors and stuff, looking at all the big sea turtles, and they're fun to have. It's a toy, but it's also a great learning tool. Whitefish especially, yeah, absolutely. Watching whitefish with a camera is a hoot. Those fish are just crazy. Let's see. Todd, should you move tip-ups closer towards shore later or shoreline later in the day for walleyes as they chase the feed, or just fish structure? We used to do that on Koshkonong. So the walleyes on the Winnebago system have never read a book on what walleyes are supposed to do, right? These fish are the most illiterate. They're not part of a normal walleye. These fish don't react. They don't do anything walleyes normally do. They just kind of roam. We have roaming fish. They live out in these mud flats, these flat areas. They don't really use structure at all. Growing up on Winnebago, I'm 43 years old, and I can honestly tell you I've never caught a walleye off a reef in the wintertime on Lake Winnebago, ever. Now, go up to Lake of the Woods, go up to northern Wisconsin, Minnesota, anywhere, and you find a rock pile and go set up on it just before night, you're going to catch walleyes. I mean, that's what walleyes do, right? Not our fish. Our fish are dumb. So, really, it doesn't matter where to go put your tip-ups closer to shore. Nope, you just got to put them wherever the bait fish are or wherever the schools may be at the time of the day. We don't have that shoreline bite. Now, let's see. Can you touch on the Mega 360 settings for Poigon or Winnebago? So, Brett, that's probably one of the biggest tools that I have. I am completely lost if I don't have that thing with me. Finding schools of fish, finding fish is obviously half the battle, right? Catching them is half the fun. Finding them is half the battle. And with electronics, I love the guys, they got their live scopes and, the Mega Live and all that. And they're great tools. But if you had to give me one tool to have while out on the ice, that would be a 360. I can drop that down, scan a circle, 300-foot circle in 9 seconds, and tell you if there's anything in the area. If there's nothing in the area, I'm gone. I'm not going to stay there and fish Dead Sea. I can go, move up a quarter mile, drill another hole, scan, nothing, go up another quarter mile, scan, nothing. I mean, that's really what I did tonight, was just went and drilled holes and marked some schools of fish. And, once you find those schools of fish, then it's just a matter of, putting on and catching them. So, the more you use your electronics, to find fish, the better off you're going to be. As far as, like I say, the live scope and the Mega Live, I have my Mega Live, but very seldom do I use it. It's fun when you get onto an active school of fish, And it's really nice when you're chasing schools of crappies and panfish and stuff around. But when we're walleye fishing, once I find that school of fish, a flasher works just as good, guys. And sometimes I almost kind of prefer that, just because it's quicker. And when those fish are super aggressively feeding, you need to be like right there, Johnny on the spot, to feel those bites when they come in. And flasher is instantaneous, always going to be the fastest locator. Whether we got our MX7 or our M5, M3, M1, whatever, and any of that Markham stuff is instantaneous. And with the Humminbird or the live scope, you've got that little bit of lag. And a lot of times, you anticipate the bite before you actually feel it, because it's just, you got that little bit of lag. Okay, specifically wondering about contrast sensitivity settings on 360, be able to see 300-foot circles on these lakes. Brett, it's, the thing is that every locator, I've got one, two, three, four, four big Humminbird units, and honestly, every one reads different with the same settings. You have to kind of play around with it. I can go into one of my settings once and take some screenshots and post them on my page, or send them to you. But there is no magic number. Everybody, I've seen and watched so many different videos, over the years with guys doing, settings and stuff like that on their units. But I can take those same settings and go to all four different units, and every one's going to read different. They're not the same. But why? I don't know. I mean, they're close, but I know, like on the 9-inch that's on the snowmobile versus the 12-inch that's on the shuttle, two totally different units, and they read different. But at the end of the day, when you got your settings on the 360, and you can see schools of fish, that's it. I don't care about detail. I mean, heck, I think the old 360, one thing I really liked about the old 360 units is it had a cone, and the transducer was inside the cone, so it couldn't freeze up on you. With this 360 now, you've got a rotating disc that the minute the minute you took it out of the ice, that thing was locked up, and you had to sit there and swivel it back and forth to thaw it out. What I want to do is get a piece of 6-inch PVC, put some water or some RV antifreeze or something in there, mount that to my snowmobile, and then once I'm done, drop that thing down in there to keep it thawed out. So that way when we're running around on the super cold days, that unit isn't freezing up, because that is the biggest drawback to using that 360 is when it's cold, that sucks. A lot of times I actually just take a 5-gallon bucket, put a bunch of water in there, and then dunk my deucer in my 5-gallon bucket and drive around, just so that way that the head doesn't freeze up on me. So if anybody's got any tips on how to keep that thing thawed, I would be way interested. Brad, I've tried the silicone spray. How that thing is made, there's that rotating disc, there's such a tight tolerance around the part that rotates and the outer shell, and they've got holes drilled in there, so when you pull the transducer up, that water comes out. I've gone as far as drilling multiple more holes around that edge, and that's helped a lot, because more water can drain out of there before it has a chance to freeze. But it still collects and will freeze up on me. So the only thing that I found so far that works good is keeping a bucket of water or putting it in water in between holes. The heat pockets, what are you gonna? That you're gonna wet them. I mean, everything's gonna be wet, and there's so much water that comes out of that transducer. Those heat packets or those hand warmers, those things will be soaking wet and aren't going to do a bit of good. When you got those things, when you're constantly putting that transducer in and out of there. So, I think Humminbird's probably aware of it, and we'll know more what the next probably year or so here, with what new could come out to remedy that situation. I have a feeling there's probably something that's going to be coming up. All right. So, any other questions here, tip up wise? So the bite, the ice on the lakes, guys, is doing really well. We dodged a huge bullet with that snowstorm. The ice set up nice. We've been out on Poigan here. Tomorrow, I'm going to check some lakes around Watoma, Washera County. We didn't get as much snow. There's obviously some drifting out there. But the ice anywhere, I'd say as much as 10 inches out on Poigan. I did find, I drilled on a couple of the springs today with the snowmobile, and I had about 5-6 inches or so. But most everywhere I was at, I had 8 inches of ice. So, and it's good solid ice. There are some of the patches that were from old that are cloudy and not as hard as what all that new ice is that froze nice and solid here over the last week. But when I drilled through some of that old ice too, that's where I found like the 10 inches, the first 3 inches or so is kind of softer, white milky ice. But once you got down, I mean, it's all hard. You don't have to worry, anything about driving four-wheelers and snowmobiles and stuff around. I wouldn't take any trucks out yet, guys. I know one of the, 2 or 3 vehicles, I think, off the landings here in the last couple of days have went in, guys trying. But I know County Landing over on the south shore of Poigan, is snowed in pretty good. And I think what I'm going to do, if anybody wants to come and help, I might load the tractor up and go and see if we can't scoop that snow out of there and give us another access point. So if anybody's willing to come help me out, get a hold of me, private message me or whatever, and we can go and work on clearing that thing. Because right now there's like a 4 or 5 foot drift. Looks like somebody took a snowblower and made a little path for four-wheelers and that, but the rest of it is caked in pretty good. That wind did a number on that landing. So I think we'll try and get over there and do my do good for the year and try and plow that landing out so we all got an extra access point. Out on Winnebago, the bays guys are still getting a bunch of bluegills and perch and panfish. Fishing seems to be pretty good out there. Out in the main lake, I know there's guys catching walleyes. I think we're going to have a pretty good season out on Winnebago. I'll be excited to get out and actually catch some fish in water deeper than 5 feet this year. For the first few weeks here, though, while we're building ice, we're going to definitely be chasing around out on Poigan and, chasing those fish down. And, not only that, it's a little bit closer for me. So, hopefully we got a good season. Like I say, no real big ice, things to worry about. Everywhere I drove today looked decent. There's a few cracks that are covered in by snow, but no major heaves yet. Now, watch what happens the end of this week. We're going to have a little bit of a warm up. Looks like they took the rain away, so we're not going to have to worry about that, so to say. But a little bit of warm up ain't going to hurt nothing. Our ice is solid. It's not going anywhere, and I feel that we'll be good here. But anybody that wants to come and give me a hand, get a hold of me, and we'll definitely go out there and see if we can't plow that landing open. Let's see. For anybody that's watching, officially, running trips. I'll start fishing here now Thursday. So if anybody is looking to come out, we're officially open for business. We've got a couple new shacks ready to go. We got one more yet two. We think we're going to build one more yet and fix up one of our other shacks. So we're going to rearrange it to make it a little bit more fishable for some guys. But we've got a couple shacks out on the ice now. We've got the trailer. We've got the portables. We're ready to go. Just got to finish spooling up some more rods and getting everything all put together and finalized. It's always, last minute, crunch time stuff that we should have been doing. It was 70 degrees out, not 10. But hey, that's just what guys do, right? We're procrastinators. That's just in our DNA, and we can't help it. So we just adapt and overcome. Let's see. What other questions do we have? Did anybody get out over the weekend? Anybody have any fishing reports that they want to share? If you got coordinates, you don't have to share them on here. I can send you my cell phone number. I'll gladly take them. I promise I won't tell anybody. Rick, how's it going, man? Jared. Wow, everybody's quiet tonight. Just going back through the comments here to see if I missed anything. John, as far as tips for finding these schools, drill holes, man. I got the new that new Ion out tonight, and man, do I love that thing. Drill lots of holes. If you have electronics, I understand electronics can be expensive, but depends on how much time you want to spend, and time is money, and I get that we do. We do this for a living, so these are our tools, for our job. But electronics are a huge part of what makes angler successful. And as far as using the live scope and and is it cheating, and we're definitely finding fish a lot easier than what we ever have. But at the end of the day, they still have to eat, and Jared can contest. Everybody that's fished with me can contest that I'll put you on the fish, but I can't guarantee that they're going to bite. That's just something we can't control. One of the guides that I was with up in Canada told me this, and I'll never forget it. He's like, I'm not God, I'm just a guide. I can't make these fish bite. We'll do everything we can to try. We've got every tool. We've got every bait. We've got everything under the sun to try and catch these fish. But at the end of the day, we can't make them bite. So if you fish enough, you understand that. Unfortunately, some of these people that we get to come out on the lake have never fished before, and they think, oh, we're going with a guide, and that's a guaranteed day of catching fish. It doesn't work that way. As much as I would love to say that, it doesn't work. Ty, yes, 80-pound Maine typically I run about a 2 to 3 foot leader. And for bluegills, or I'm sorry, for perch crappies, I'm running a 3 or 4 pound. And then walleyes, either a 6 or an 8 pound. I use that gold label cigar in the 8 because it's got the same diameter as pretty much any other line in a 6 pound, but yet it still has the strength of 8. So a little bit more expensive, but it's a superior line, and definitely softer. So again, we get that movement, that natural movement from the fish or from the minnows, and keeps our baits more natural, thinner line. Let's see, colors of lures. John, we go back and watch last week's or not last week, the week before the episode. We talked a real detail about lure selection, and all I'll tell you this is that, do not waste your money on custom painted baits. When you look at what these fish see, they see hues, they see contrast. They don't see, fine fancy. I thought maybe I had some baits out here, but they're all in the shop. When you got a walleye swimming up and you got a bait that's got 15 different colors and fine scale patterns and nice eyes and all this fancy stuff painted on it, do you think that honestly is going to make a difference for catching that fish? No. What it did is it caught the fisherman. There's custom painted guys that make really good custom painted baits that are very bold, contrasty. But these guys that spend all this time detailing and making them look really fancy and pretty in the package, they're catching the fishermen. They're not catching the fish. Those fish come in, you're ripping the bait, right? And that fish comes in and it sees your bait and you start moving it, making that fish chase it. Okay, they're down here and they're going to chase up all that custom painted stuff that's up on top of your bait, all those fine scale patterns and everything. Those fish don't even see it. They see the contrast from the belly to the side as that thing's rocking through the water. That's what attracts them. That's what's going to trigger those fish to bite. And, when those fish come in, they see that and they don't come up and swim over the top of it, swim underneath it, off to the side. It's like, wow, that is a really good paint job. I'm going to eat it. No, it don't work that way. They got a split second to figure out if they're going to eat it or not. And that's really what makes you a better angler. And, jig, 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 keep your baits moving. And that's probably the easiest thing I can tell you. Hammered copper, hammered gold, hammered silver, a black nickel, a pink, or a white is a lot of the colors that are in my box. But primarily hammered gold, hammered copper, hammered silver. Those are going to be the three baits that are going to be on my line most of the time. After that, when it comes time to minnow style baits, we use a lot of the Z darters, the new V2s. I was just actually, it's the minute I seen that micro, that 16th inch or 16th ounce 1 inch micro that Ben came out with this year, I said right away, I said, that's going to be a killer bait for Poigan, and went out and, the white bass couldn't resist. There's actually a rattle inside this thing too. So, when we were ripping it, they weren't interested today on the real fast moving. Now spoons, ripping the spoons, and guys were whacking them. But with the minnow style bait, once I figured out that just sit there and just shake it real small, shake it and make that bead, that rattle go down there, that was all over. They just crushed it. John, as far as pimples go, number 3s, number 4s, by far, my absolute number one most favorite bait would be a number 3 hammered copper Swedish pimple. If I had to go to the grave with one bait, that would be it. Danielle, that's true, man. The cadence is all the difference in the world. There are days where these fish want no movement. I mean, literally just a little bit of a twitch, make that bait just kind of shoot off to the side just a little bit. And there's days that you can't reel fast enough to get those baits to, those fish to chase your baits. Every day is different. But the biggest thing is really never stop moving your bait. Keep your bait moving, jig. And the other thing too, keep your baits up high. Again, we were talking before, those feeding fish are higher in the water column. Down on the bottom, you're going to mark fish down there, but when you drop your baits down to them, most of the time, 90% of the time, those fish on the bottom, unless they're perch, but walleye fishing, most of those fish on the bottom, they're not going to eat. You bring your bait up high, and you start just working your bait up high, and you're going to start noticing that you're not going to mark fish. All of a sudden, it's just going to be there, because you got to remember how your transducer works on your locator. You got a cone that opens up as you go down. So if, let's say, here's your water column, right? And as your cone kind of opens up, you're seeing a lot more fish on the bottom because your cone is bigger. Doesn't necessarily mean that the fish are on the bottom. It just means that they're off to the side or they are on the bottom. So if you're, got a 19-degree cone and your baits are up here, you're only covering, a tiny little circle of the water column. Or down here, you can see how big of an area on the bottom you're covering. The further up you go, the less water you see. So when you're working your bait up there, you're probably not going to see that fish. They're just going to come in and they're going to eat it because you're not able to see out too far. That's why when guys, work fish, in your water column and when you're working them up on your locator, doesn't necessarily mean that they're underneath you. It could just be that they're off to the side coming in and then following you up. Yeah, absolutely. If you guys, we'll type the comment in right here. If you guys want to check out that Euro Tackle bait, I do have a discount code for everybody. Let's see. And you can use code Mr. Bluegill. If you go to Euro Tackle, and want to order any of those baits, I know Ben's got a pretty good selection of colors left. Some of the retail stores have been out, but he on the website he's got a bunch of all the good colors left yet. And I believe anybody that uses Mr. Bluegill for a code gets 10% off. So feel free, use it, share it, whatever you like. Good guy, great company, great baits. The Z darters are awesome. That new V2, and then he's got some new plastics that I'm really excited about. He makes some really good high quality baits. It's not the cheap stuff. It's good quality stuff. But again, those are our tools, right, guys? Good tools make for a lot easier job. The T flashers, the micro spoons. Yeah, I love the T flashers for perch fishing. You load those things up with spikes. The nice thing for anybody that doesn't know, the T flashers are tungsten spoons, so they drop super fast. And anybody that's ever fished perch or crappies in deep water is that you've only got probably 2 or 3 fish to catch at a time before that school swims off and comes back again. So with those tungsten spoons, you can catch some fish, drop that bait down super fast, get right back into the zone, and work those spoons. They're not a flutter spoon. It's not meant to dance and flutter and all that. It is strictly a loaded up with spikes, waxworms, minnow head, whatever you like, and drop it down fast. They've got a treble hook with some hair on it, so it's got some really neat attractant. Great, just a standard jigging spoon that's super heavy. And depending on what size you need, if you're going after the walleyes or perch or whatnot, he does have a few different sizes. My the wife's dog is just howling in the back. Brian, the promo code is Mr. Bluegill, MRBLUEGILL. My wife's got a little Chihuahua, and the other little dog she's got attacked him today, and I think he's got a hurt foot because he's whining. And he's a Sally to begin with, but he can't put any weight on it, and he starts squealing like a pig. Let's see. We can definitely do a Todd, no, I haven't. I'm going to go check the smaller lakes tomorrow out here and see what we got. I guess that we're going to have probably about the same, that 5-6 inches of ice. The thing about Washera County, Watoma, Troy's favorite dog, don't lie. My wife named the Chihuahua Minnow, thinking that I might like it better. But all I did is I got her a picture with a vest that had treble hooks on it that we could hook up and let that thing swim around for musky bait. So let's see. Yeah, the snow on these lakes around here in Washera County, because they're small little bowls, what snow falls doesn't really blow off, so it stacks up a lot higher. So I'm guessing that we've probably got about a good foot or more of snow around here. So I'm guessing oh, Todd, I'm gonna let your sister see that one. But I agree, he's ugly. I believe that the ice took a little bit of a hit around here compared to some of the bigger lakes, just because of the insulating snow factor we got. But some of the lakes didn't freeze. Our deeper lakes didn't freeze till after that second snowfall. So I think we got lucky there. And tomorrow I'll go check and see what happens and see how the ice survived and how we're doing out here. I'm excited to get out around here. Checked out some new lakes this summer in the boat, and found some new bodies of water that I want to go check out on the ice and see what we can find. Let's see. Brian, we don't have any slush yet. I don't think there's, but I don't know. Out here, just about every year, we get slush on the ice on these deeper, clear glacial lakes. We typically get a couple, usually around 18 to 20, 2 feet of snow on these lakes out by us, and we get, we will get slush, and it's a little messy, but I don't think we have any slush to worry about yet. No, yes, I was out there tonight, or this afternoon. I drilled, basically went off the south shore, went all the way around the lake, up into Norwegian, and then back out to the east side of the horseshoe, just checking ice and kind of scouting for spots, looking for schools of fish. And yeah, all the ice looked great. There's some big ice piles up in Norwegian Bay. The typical spots where, the shallow water where the wind blew up, some big ice mountains and stuff like that. But for the most part, everything's flat. There's really not a lot. I mean, like I say, a very few small cracks that are kind of drifted over. I'm sure this weekend, this week as it gets warmer, that stuff will move and open up, and we'll see it a little bit better. Hence why I run a snowmobile versus an ATV, is because at 60 miles an hour, I don't really have to worry about much. You can skate over the top of this stuff pretty easy. Let's see. So next week, Tuesday, we'll definitely do another one, 8 o'clock. We're just gonna, keep it at that. It seems to work good for everybody. I'm gonna try and pick up a couple guests. If there's anybody you guys would like to see, talk to, if you have some topics you guys want to cover, let me know, and definitely do my best to share my insights on what we do. Again, this isn't gospel, guys. It's just what 30 years of experience has taught me. I like to think we're out there more than most, and the one thing that you learn is the more time you spend on the water, and the more you learn, and we're always learning. You learn something new every day. If you're too stubborn to learn, you probably shouldn't be out there. How to do more regarding last week's presentation. John, explain that one a little bit. As far as like preserving lakes for panfish, or what? Elaborate just a little bit more for me. Okay. Well, again, I'm not going to ever be the guy to tell you can or cannot keep fish. If you feel guilty for keeping a bunch of fish, your guilty conscience probably got the best of you, and okay, how to get involved. That's an easy one. Go to your spring hearings and write to your local the local, whether it be your congressman or any of your local representatives. Contact the DNR, and just be active with them, and let them know. If you have lakes around your area that you would like to see get added to bags. I just wish they'd go statewide, black and white, 10 or 15 panfish limits, and just keep it that way. There's you talk to so many different wardens in Wisconsin, and they hate the laws that we have because none of them know it. They have to keep books around. They don't even know what the laws are because everything is so specific to lake. And, I've had so many different wardens in the area tell me they would love to see black and white 10 or 15 statewide, done, period. I just wish they'd go to that. Every county, every lake. It seems like I mean, knowing all the lakes around here, I find myself, jumping on my phone or checking out regulations like, oh, I know they changed, but what did they change? And, it's a headache. I just wish they'd go statewide, 15 fish or 10 fish per lake, or 5, something super simple that, one, would preserve our lakes, and two, make it easy to know what the rules are. Because, we're all having to go and check the regulations or read the signs at the landings, or, look into every single lake we're on every single day. And it's just a headache. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll see if I can't get one of our fisheries guys here, or one of the wardens on, and see if we can't, talk about, how to get more involved and try and help. But I'll do some more research, more locally. Having Mike on last week, that guy's a wealth of knowledge. He works a lot with the Minnesota guys, and it was great having him on and sharing the information that he knows. And what they do has been working great for them up in Minnesota. So again, I wish we could kind of do the same. But I think we've got a lot more people over here that feel the need to kill everything, and it's just getting harder. I'll send you a PM, John. No problem. My wife just walked in with the injured child. Babe, your brother said that's the ugliest dog he's ever seen.
No. He would never say that.
Todd, she said you would never say that. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining in. And no, I'm okay. See, her back hurts too, so she'd have to outrun me. I'm going to go put some more wood on the fire and relax for the rest of the evening. If anybody, again, wants to come out and give me a hand over on the South Shore, they're at the county landing on Poygan. Shoot me a private message or let me know, and we'll go over there and see if we can't tackle that and make a road out and get rid of that drift. So we'll catch you guys next week, Tuesday. Please shoot me some messages or, reply on here for some topics. And we'll do what we can. Good luck this weekend. Happy New Year's to everybody. And we'll catch you guys on the ice, and see you guys next week.